In our modern world, humans often have to go out of their way to get up close and personal with wild animals. Some of us even pay for the opportunity with popular tourist activities like safaris or whale watching tours. Even though these animals may be intrinsically interesting to watch in their natural environment, we need to be exceptionally careful around them, especially when we're on their turf. Otherwise, we may find ourselves in an uncomfortable situation, like you're about to witness in these 13 close animal encounters. Number 13. Fishing, the second most popular outdoor activity behind running or jogging. Few things rival the excitement of feeling a tug on your line and battling a fish all the way to the surface. And when they finally do surface, you can relax and revel in your accomplishment. Well, at least usually. In this clip, you can see a man is fishing for catfish with a jug line. Unfortunately for him, there's no catfish on the other end of the line. As he pulls this catch to the surface, he makes the shocking realization that a gigantic alligator is hooked. After he sees his prehistoric pal on the line, he yeets the float back into the water and paddles away, fearing for his life. The alligator could have easily capsized his small boat, or at least caused a bit of panic if it began thrashing when it surfaced. Luckily for this guy, he said, "See you later, alligator," at just the right time. Number 12. Whale watching is a popular recreational activity that generates over $2 billion per year. While generally one of the safer wild animal tours you can go on, it's pretty easy to see how this could go wrong pretty quickly if you're having an unlucky day. This group of whale watchers had the surprise of their lives when one of the whales decided to introduce itself in a rather unique way.
He's coming again. This one is got a vengeance.
The whale had smacked into their boat and left the barnacles that were attached to its stomach strewn across the deck. Lucky for them though, the whale didn't breach far enough to cause serious damage to the boat or anybody on board. Number 11. Occasionally, a situation arises that common sense may dictate as dangerous, but since everybody else is doing it, we join in ourselves. Mob mentality can sometimes lead us into sticky situations. For example, if everyone has exited their vehicle and is taking pictures of a nearby bear, it's still probably not a good idea to do the same thing. Despite this seemingly common sense statement, this clip shows an example of individuals who didn't quite grasp this concept. This incident occurred on Highway 93 near Jasper, Alberta, Canada. There were several individuals who had left their cars to photograph a bear close up, and the bear decided that he had had enough of being spectated. He charged a nearby woman, and for the first time in history, the technique of turning around and pretending something doesn't exist actually worked. The bear had gotten his message across, and was satisfied that he had sent the group scurrying back to their vehicles. Number 10. Speaking of intimidating Canadian wildlife, elk are some of the larger and more powerful land animals that exist. Despite being herbivores, they can be extremely territorial, and so you might want to stay out of their way if you don't want to be charged at or gouged by their gigantic antlers. As opposed to giving them their deserved distance, this tourist gets right up in the giant elk's face. Despite being clearly agitated and bluff charging him, the man is resilient and seems to be unafraid of his impending date with this elk's cranium. Eventually, he decides to back off after a bit more convincing, but ultimately, he turns around again and continues filming the creature at a relatively unsafe distance. It just goes to show that some people can take a hint. Number 9. An animal doesn't necessarily have to be extremely intimidating to put us in a dangerous situation. Sometimes we have close encounters with those we wouldn't expect to be threatening, especially if you throw young children into the equation. And this mother is letting her child get acquainted with some more tame animals as they go to get a closer look at the rooster. Meanwhile, a ram is charging in from downtown, with enough velocity to send the toddler flying. Luckily for them, mom reflexes kicked in and she pulls her child out of harm's way without a second to spare. If the ram had managed to connect his sprinting headbutt, there's a good chance that this unexpected child would have been seriously injured or possibly even killed. Number 8. As you may remember from the bear incident earlier on our list, it is advised that when around wild predators, you should not exit your vehicle for any reason. Unfortunately for this next family, they never reached that chapter of their survival guide. This family had made their way to a safari park in the Dutch city of Tilburg. The video begins with the car behind them recording their ill-advised decision to get out of their car for closer photos of the nearby cheetahs. Soon after, they drove a short ways away and got out of the car once again, but this time, the cheetahs were on the chase. The cheetahs had actually singled out the toddler among the family and began stalking him as if he were their prey. Lucky for him, his mother was able to shoo away the predators before they pounced. While in the end, the family made it back safely. Their negligence put their child in immense danger, and they were lucky to get away unscathed. Number 7. If you've been following along with our other videos, you know that the ocean can be a scary place. We can't get much more out of our element than being in the middle of the sea. And that's exactly where this next clip is taking us. In the French Navy, it is tradition that on the last day of your assignment, you leap off the ship and take a swim. And that's what we're watching here. Unfortunately for this soldier, he's not alone in the water. A large shark comes up to inspect what just hit the water and brushes the swimming soldier's foot as he goes in for a closer look. Thankfully, the shark determined that he wasn't a meal and swam away without any aggression. If the shark had taken a different approach, this soldier could have had a pretty tragic final day. Number 6. While most of these encounters have involved humans venturing a bit too far into a predator's territory, that isn't always the case. Sometimes the predators come directly to us, as we can see in this video. 2 men were riding their motorcycles and way in at India when something decided to pay them a visit. Seemingly out of nowhere, a tiger emerges from the brush and sprints full speed towards them. The men narrowly managed to distance themselves from the hungry cat. That being said, this definitely wouldn't be a road I would recommend taking a jog down. Number 5. As we've seen, you don't always have to go out of your way to find yourself a bit too close to a dangerous animal. One time you need to keep this in mind and be especially careful of your surroundings is when you're camping. A gigantic grizzly bear found his way into this man's campsite and he's looking for food. The camper, still inside his tent and just a few feet away, manages to capture some amazing up-close video of this impressive bear. Eventually, he returns to his tent without arousing too much suspicion. And there doesn't seem to be much backstory on this clip, but seeing as it was uploaded at all, I'm assuming this guy got lucky and avoided becoming bear food. Number 4. What could be worse than getting too close to a dangerous animal? How about bringing some food along and taunting them with it? Yeah, I would say that's worse. This clip shows a man holding a large piece of meat in an attempt to lure out whatever lies in this murky pond. What emerges is pure nightmare fuel. This beast of an alligator launches itself from the water, breaking the still, algae-covered surface and revealing what lies below. The man who was luring him out gets a healthy boost to his heart rate and manages to back up just in time to avoid becoming this gator's dinner. I know I'll be checking twice before I get close to any ponds from now on. Number 3. As we saw a short while ago, grizzly bears are no joke. but at least the one we saw was calm and just scavenging for food. If we take that same massive animal and put it into attack mode, the result is terrifying. These two snowmobilers have gotten themselves way too close to one of Earth's most voracious predators. The guy directly behind the Grizzly decides to begin recording their experience in tailgating the beast closely. While this may seem like a brilliant idea, you'll see that it's not exactly foolproof. The bear becomes irritated or scared, and quickly turns toward the man behind him while attempting to swipe him. He narrowly avoids the beefy bear paw and speeds off. Next time, I wouldn't recommend getting all up in a grizzly's grill. Number 2. One of the most important things they warn you about when visiting wildlife reserves or national parks is to keep a safe distance from the animals. Unfortunately, not everyone follows this basic rule, and when they don't, incidents can occur. Just last year in Yellowstone National Park, a 9-year-old girl was visiting with her family and managed to get a close look at some of the bison. In fact, they were in a group of nearly 50 people that were casually loitering around the animals, and one bison got a bit fed up with everyone crowding his space. He begins to charge and singles out the young girl, headbutting her. He flings her high into the air and flips her completely. The girl was treated by park emergency workers but sustained no serious injuries. Honorary mention. In our first honorary mention, we witness a truly terrifying close encounter between a giant bird of prey and an innocent child. As you can see, the child has the turkey close on his heels. Running for his life, he gains the attention of the passing vehicles, and one man decides to come out to the rescue. Putting his vehicle between the child and the bloodthirsty turkey just in time, this man very well may have saved the child's life. For his heroic efforts, he has earned our first honorary mention. Now let's finish the countdown. Number 1. Finally, we've reached number 1 on our list of close animal encounters. What could possibly be deserving of the number 1 closest animal encounter? How about an animal slapping a human with another animal? In this clip, Kyle Mullender was out kayaking in Kakura, New Zealand, when he received an unexpected visit from a seal and an octopus at the same time.
Underwater?
Yeah.
Whoa! What?
He takes his slap like a champ, and they continue their kayaking trip with an unforgettable moment that they were fortunate enough to capture on camera. That's one way to become more in touch with nature. As we've seen, animals can be rather unpredictable, but one way to minimize the risk is to keep a safe distance when you're in their territory. Not every close encounter ends as fortunately as those on this list, and wild animals should be treated with respect. Otherwise, they may command it for themselves. Regardless, there will always be people willing to test their luck, which will surely lead us to another installment of close animal encounters.